that at this point, none of them are a viable option, and we should focus our efforts where we need to put them.
But you're not objecting to it, so you don't think people will start wrecking field trials of this technology like some people did for GM? I know not with your formal backing, you would never back illegal vandalism, but some people identified with your cause there. You're not envisaging that sort of reaction to this technology, are you?
I have no idea how people other than myself will respond to these issues, but I don't think we're in that same sort of debate. I think in this situation we're talking about something that could possibly happen 20, 30 years from now, that people are talking about researching at this stage. All I'm saying in our evidence is that we need to not provide a barrier, if you like, to that research, but it has to be done in a legitimate way, in a transparent way, and in a way which follows a set of very clear and precautionary rules.
Right.
On that, very positive. I think Dr. House, you would agree with that. Could I thank very much indeed Professor Brian Launder, Dr. Dan Lunt and Dr. David Santillo for being our first set of witnesses on this particular inquiry. Thank you all very much indeed. Can I say that we're moving immediately on to our second panel, if we could have Professor Salter, Professor Ken Caldera and Dr. Vicky Pope with us, please.
He says, and he's going to talk about the chart, okay?
Well, we're having a video link as well from the States on this particular section, where we've got Professor Klaus Lackner from Columbia University, who will be giving evidence as well. And we're hoping the technology will work. Well, we are here anyhow.
I'm not.
Does that mean I can move? We'll slip our cam slightly to the side to include. While we're waiting for the video to go, can we welcome very much indeed Professor Salter to our inquiry this afternoon. Thank you very much for coming from the University of Edinburgh. Professor Ken Caldera, thank you very much indeed for coming all the way from the States. You didn't trust the video link, but we're delighted to have you. And thank you very much indeed from the Carnegie Institution for that. Professor Caldera, welcome to the House of Commons and to the Select Committee inquiry. And we thank you very much indeed for joining us this afternoon. And we're sorry that you've had a slight wait while we've interviewed a previous panel, but welcome. And finally, can I welcome Dr. Vicky Pope from the Met Office. Met Office is a good friend of our committee over many inquiries, and we're very pleased indeed to have you. I'm going to ask Gordon Marsden to begin the questioning here, and to be as brief as you possibly can, Gordon, given the fact that we've got a video link on.
Indeed. If I could start by getting a quick summary from all three of our eminent professors this afternoon on how you've actually funded your programmes with geoengineering research to date, and what has been the biggest challenge in taking them forward. And perhaps I could start with you, Professor Caldera.
I have the good fortune of working for the Carnegie Institution, which is funded by an endowment left by Andrew Carnegie in 1902. And so my funding's covered by that. And I also do get some philanthropic funding to support postdoctoral researchers in this area, but I have no federal or public funding at all.
Okay, and what's been the biggest challenge taking your research forward? Skepticism?
Yeah, well, let me say that I'm a big advocate of research. I don't really consider myself an advocate of geoengineering. I think that these schemes have the potential to diminish environmental risk, but we don't really know whether they will or not. And I think the politics around this makes it difficult to discuss these issues in a neutral and balanced way. And what I would like to see is more research that focuses on this topic in a balanced way on empirically answerable questions.
Can we bring you in, Professor Lackner?
Yes. Thank you for having me and inviting me to be part of this. I am the director of the Landfest Center for Sustainable Energy here at Columbia University, and so a good fraction of my funding actually is derived from the generosity of a single individual, Mr. Landfest, who is a trustee of the university and has endowed and supported this center. At the same time, we have small amounts of money from government funding to deal with what I would call the carbon cycle engineering. And a few years back, in 2003, we managed to get a small company started, which got its money as a startup from what I would call angel funding, in order to demonstrate that the capture of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is really possible.
Okay, thanks. Professor Salt?
I've had no money at all. I have a promise from Ken Caldera that he'll pay my travel for going to some conferences. And that's all I've had.
Second class, I hope.
And what about, and I was going to say, what's been your biggest challenge? I mean, clearly money is a challenge, but are there others?
I think the biggest challenge is there's only 7 days in the week. That's the trouble, really.
Professor Cadet.
I can say that, since this is about training, that I've had advertisements posted for postdoctoral researchers in this area, and I have been unable to find good qualified people who have the technical skills to work in this area.
You see, what's interesting from the range of responses that the three of you have given is that a couple of references to public funding in small amounts, but the majority of what we're talking about has been private entrepreneurial activity. I mean, would it, again, perhaps Professor Salter, looking at from the UK perspective, do you think that is the most appropriate mechanism to take this research forward?
It would be sensible to have the normal grant-giving process allowed to cover geoengineering. I have applied to the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, and they turned it down. I've made verbal inquiry.
Do you know why?
Yes, they said that one of the referees said that we hadn't put enough effort into how we disseminate the results.
Right.
And you only need one tiny little negative comment for it to be thrown out. It doesn't even get to the panel. I'm trying again at the moment from the Environmental Research Council, and I have to get a proposal into them for early December.
Right. Professor Caldera, perhaps I could come to you and then to you, Professor Lackner. From the US perspective, obviously, again, the majority of your funding appears to have come from private sources. Is that realistic, given the huge scale of the potential that should remain in the private sector?
No, I think it's because climate engineering has the potential to reduce climate risk cost effectively, that I think it's important to research it as a possible climate emergency response approach, and it will need public funding, and it should be public funding because there should be no real commercial market for these technologies. It would be the public sector that should deploy it, and policymakers need unbiased and accurate information, and I think public funding is the best way to achieve that.
Professor Lackner, the new President-elect of the United States appears to be far more positive and responsive in some of these areas of climate change than the existing one. Would it be your expectation that there might be a role for more public funding in this area under the new administration?
I would expect so, and I would hope so. But let me also make a distinction between climate change engineering, which is what first comes to mind when people talk about geoengineering, and contrast it with what I would call carbon cycle engineering. I think climate change engineering is a last resort and should be treated like that, because it's like the fire department. When your house burns down, you will accept the water damage. And in many ways, if carbon dioxide were smelly, we wouldn't solve the problem by giving out nose plugs. We would stop putting carbon dioxide out, which I think is actually the more approach. And so I would